A lot of life makes its way into my drawings a lot of the time. Like a lot of little pieces, and like even stuff like garbage. Like I love garbage in a way. In the way that it sort of, how it sits and how it tells a story. It's got little layers and little what's happened just on the street, and it just tells this strange little story of like what's happened during the day with garbage, and just little piles of tables and what people have chucked out. I think that tells a great story, like an action that's already happened. My name is Max Prentice. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and I'm an illustrator. So I got into art at a very young age, mainly just doodling. My love of art began, I think it started when definitely your parents, when you draw something and they take interest in it, you respond to that by wanting to do it more. Drawing things like, typical things like army men or things with guns and strange little aliens and monsters and stuff like that. I originally thought painting was the only thing out there, and you know, everyone becomes a painter and that's the only thing you can do. And then I got into sculpture and I found that I loved it. Like I loved the sort of the play between everything. You can really make anything into sculpture. Like it's not just this flat sort of thing. You can sort of play and dance with it and manipulate it. So I did illustration school, and I really got into ink. I was seeing all these different artists online and in books that I really liked, just the black and white inks. I really wanted to, you know, get into that. Like I really wanted to sort of explore it. Mainly through illustration school, I was like doing bits and bobs. I was still trying to find myself, but towards the end, like I just found ink was just where I loved, like where my passion lied, really. And I really did everything back in Sydney, from exhibitions to marketplaces to freelance jobs, anything I could get my hands on. London, when like coming here, I've like definitely like developed as an artist. Like I do create a lot more. I do find it more inspiring being here as well. And with the limited time, like I do feel like I need to just work more and work harder and do a lot more work. Like back in Sydney, it was a bit more lax, and you know, it's your hometown, so you can just sort of relax and do what you usually do. While over here, like it felt more like a mission. Like I came here to do illustration. With ink, what I love about ink is that, in comparison to say drawing, like ink is just so, it's straight up and down. It's that contrast that you can't backtrack on ink. It's straightforward, and especially with me, since I'm very finicky with everything. Like it's just a decision maker that forces you to make that line, and then you can't reverse it and you can't change it. And instead with drawing, where you can sort of manipulate it, remove it, and sort of take away drawing, while ink is just, it's solid there and you can't really change it at all. I love that sort of decision maker for you, and just sort of forces your hand to sort of make that mark. But I also love it because you can get so much from it. You can get these little fine little hairline drawings, or you get these giant, big, black, lively sort of shapes that you can't get from other mediums. Yeah, I just love it. With the garbage thing, it's like, it's one of these things that just like, it's got so much soul, and like you can tell people have been there. You can tell things have happened there. Well, with cleaner, more straight cut sort of stuff, it doesn't really, it says the machine's built this, and that's really it. It definitely comes from emotion. I think it comes from anxiety, the melting, that straining feeling. all artists need to express themselves. If you don't express yourself, you tend to bottle it up. And I feel like if you try to do romantic stuff where you're trying to make everything happy and clean and fun, there's no real point to it. So my last works, it is a lot of ideas about what's going to happen in the future. A lot of things to do with mass consumerism. I love the idea of this mass consumer sort of stuff, like sort of folding in on itself. The collapse of society and where we'd actually go from there. My process begins, typically I write it down. So anywhere where I am, if I'm on the bus or I'm at work, or if I just woken up, like I write something down always. Like I always jot down a little idea. It could be anything. Most of these little writings, like there's hundreds of them now, they don't come to light, but I read through them back over again, and then I try to pick a good one that visually speaks to me. From there, I usually do a few thumbnails, like 6 or 7 thumbnails of the one drawing. If I find one that really works, that I think would really work, I expand it again to a larger thumbnail. And then again, the process begins where I do a few thumbnails and I work on it, and then I'll bring it to this sort of size where I'll draft it up properly. Again, it will be that sort of back and forth between ideas, changing it around, and then ink will go down. And it will tend to take me about a week to do a piece. And I'll add a bit more to the original idea, but it tends to stay the same generally. So this work originally started off with just growth. So I mean that's where the Chinese symbols from. I originally was doing this thing about growth and like, you know, regeneration, that sort of thing. But then it evolved a bit more into, it's originally about death. When I'm talking about like that melting sort of thing, the anxiety, it is my like fear of death. But then that anxiety washes away eventually, and it is that idea of growth and that it is just a part of life. What I think makes me different is that I sit in between this idea of like comic books and sort of graphic design sort of elements. It doesn't really fit into either. I don't really consider myself to be like a comic book graphic novel artist, and I don't really consider myself to be like a graphic designer in any aspects. It's not really trying to land on like a direct sort of style. And I think that just comes from like a lot of my inspirations as well. Like a lot of graphic designers and illustrators and typographers and sculptors